Dajahaw, kumusta? My name is Victor, and I want to have a casual conversation with you guys about these two cameras, the A7IV and the FX30. Now, last year, I've worked a lot with the A7IV, and it's a phenomenal camera. But later on last year, October 2022, they released the FX30. Now, I've been pushing this guy through my production work and through my other jobs in the past 3 months, and honestly, this is a really good camera as well. I actually just got back from LA and I took the FX30 with me to do the job there. I shot a few reels for a specific car company, and that I finally figured out the limit of this camera. Between these two cameras, the image quality is almost the same. Now, if you pixel peep, the FX30's footage is just a little bit noisier. But if you're looking at the overall image, I think these are pretty much almost the same. You just need to know how to properly expose with your cameras, how to use and manipulate natural lighting, artificial lighting. And when you get that down, I don't think you would need a better camera or a more expensive camera than these two. And I think we're reaching the golden age of cameras, or maybe we're already in the golden age of cameras. Cameras nowadays are so powerful, and it all just boils down to personal preference. But to me, both cameras do really well in the image quality department. There is a slight difference between low light image quality though, because with the A7IV, it does have the slight edge because it's full frame and it has a higher second base ISO, and I find it much cleaner in low light as well. Compared to the FX30, this is where I found the limitations. Now, I've tested it out with higher ISO values, but I really just pushed it to 2500 to see where it lacks. And in situations where there's almost no light, this thing falls apart. When you see my videos on the FX30 in low light situations, those are actually still bright because there's a lot of light present in the situation. But once you get into a no light situation where there's only 1 or 2 or 3 really small sources, this thing needs more light in. This thing is hungry for light. And since it's an APS-C, you need to introduce a lot more light. So in run and gun situations where there's limited lighting, I would suggest bringing external lights to fill in your scene so that it has enough light going in. Now, I recommend just shooting on the base ISO so that you get the cleanest image, the most dynamic range on low light with 2500 ISO. But as much as I love low light shooting with the A7IV or the FX3, this thing has its limitations, and sometimes I have to throw those shots out because it just looked atrocious and that I couldn't save it in post. I could denoise it, but I don't like the softness that it gives, especially for low light scenes. With situations that have limited lighting, this thing struggles, but the A7IV and obviously the FX3 or A7III is going to do really well on those scenarios. So if you want to compare footage between the A7IV and the FX30 and you want to pixel peep to see which one's better, and that I've compared all the matching frame rates on the highest bit rate on both cameras. So here we go. So let's talk about body type. The FX30 for me is the most ergonomic because of its dedicated video body type. All the buttons are dedicated for video and everything's laid out for you on the back. You don't need to tinker much. Unlike with the previous mirrorless bodies like the A7IV, this is pretty much built for photography, and that all the custom buttons that you need to map out for video work needs to be done. And just one of those things that you have to pick. Do you prefer a dedicated video camera body or a hybrid? Personally, my preference is the video style body. It just works for dedicated video work. Even with the A7IV, although I'm used to it because I started with the A6300 with the A7 III, this is very familiar to me and I don't have issues with it. But if you're coming from a different brand, or if you're wanting to dedicate your work for video, the cinema style body from the FX3, FX30 is the way to go. I do find that the A7 IV heats up pretty quickly, but it really doesn't overheat on me. The only time that I've experienced overheating on the A7 IV is when I took it out on a day shoot outdoors, bright sunny day, and that I've been shooting all day, 60 frames per second, 10-bit 4K. So it kind of took its toll. But with the FX30, no matter what frame rate I'm shooting, no matter how long I'm shooting with it, all throughout the day, it doesn't overheat because of the fan, and it's regulating the heat, and it's pretty good. If you're like me, you might get sweaty palms because of the radiating heat coming from the center of the body, because it's processing the 10-bit footage coming from the 6K sensor downsampling to 4K. So let's talk about photography. Both cameras can do photography. Obviously, the clear winner here is the A7 IV because of its photography features. There's some pro features for photography included in this one as well, while the FX30 doesn't have an EVF. I took some photos from the FX30 and honestly, it's pretty good if you know how to expose and compose your shots, also how to edit your photos. But I wouldn't really take this on a dedicated photo shoot, especially if you do need burst or something that you would need for events. The A7 IV is there, or the A7R5, the A9, the A1. Image quality wise for photos, FX30 is pretty good. I mean, if I can take decent photos on the ZVE10, why wouldn't I be able to do it with the FX30? This has a better sensor and that it's a more expensive camera. I just miss the EVF. If I'm doing photography, I always need EVF. I tried to have only two cameras, which is the FX3 and the ZVE10, for kind of just like travel photography or video work, but it didn't work out. I really dislike taking photos with it because it's just a screen. EVF is a must-have. Which camera would I pick if I had to pick one? Well, that's going to be the A7 IV, and that's only because of the EVF. Everything that I need a camera to do for social media work and for my production work, the FX30 can do. It can take photos, you can shoot thumbnails with it. It has really good resolution for its camera for photography, and that it does really pack a punch in video. And I think the FX30 is one of the best social media content creation camera because it offers everything that you need. You could argue that people only need the ZVE10 or maybe around a lesser price. Yeah, you can even shoot with your phone for social media content and you can grow exponentially. But in terms of image quality, and if you want quality work, the FX30 is going to be there. But my personal preference is the EVF, and even if I don't do photography gigs, I love taking photos, and photography is my hobby. And that if I can shoot video and photo at the same time with my personal preference, 10-bit footage and EVF for photography, the A7 IV still has my heart. And as usual, I'm giving away my Sunset Film Lot Pack, and all you have to do to win is comment down below which camera would you pick, the A7 IV or the FX30. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you want to learn how I color grade, click on this video right here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. 너와 나 우리의